Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Starfall radio podcast. Today we're doing a different kind of episode today, not our usual podcast setup. As you maybe can tell if you're watching on YouTube, there's only three of us this time. But we have a special guest.
And I'm
so
here.
Accelerate. Would you like to
Hello.
introduce
What's
yourself?
up?
Hello. I am Accelerate. I have no sense of time. My brain doesn't function correctly, and I own a laptop. I'm a purple little stick man. Hello, everybody.
So basically, he's Needle Mouse 2.0.
I am Needle Mouse. Needle Mouse 2.0 isn't quite accurate. I'm more like I've been compared to X-Pool. Like I'm X-Pool 2.0. This is a joke that I made. Like,
I can see that.
It's like X-Pool 2.0 now with better opinions and a cuter mascot. And I know that we're debating opinions, but it's funny. So
Yeah.
shut up.
And
That was
if
a
you've been
joke I made to
watching,
him.
and if you've been watching the podcast, you know who Shaulov10 is probably.
You know who?
What's
Yeah.
up? Yeah.
Hi,
What do you mean,
Benji.
bro? They don't know who I am,
Benji.
bro. I'm some dark and mysterious figure, bro. What do you mean? Bro?
You are not nonchalant, bro.
Bro,
Don't
I'm
get it.
opium,
You're this
bro. What
like
do you
shady
mean,
chow.
bro?
You know what?
I'm
You're the
opium.
chow at the black market. Like when you go to the
That's
black
so
market,
true.
that's you in the little booth selling all the
gave me
chow
a good,
eggs and the
you just gave me a
fruits
good
and
art
stuff.
idea. I'm gonna save that for.
Okay,
All
well
right,
there you go.
Okay, so today, we are debating. Well, they are debating whether
me and him.
Sonic Heroes is a good or bad game. So Accelerate is going to be defending the game, and Benji is going to be not defending the game, doing the opposite,
Criticizing
explaining
it.
why it's bad, criticizing it. Thank you. So, how this is going to work is we'll have opening statements for each topic. There's 5 topics. And each opening statement, each candidate will have 2 minutes to open, and then 1 minute each for rebuttals, and we'll go until I don't know, as much as we need to until the topic is closed.
Sure.
So, and after that, we have elected Accelerate. He has elected himself really to take the
Well,
final.
okay, hold on. No. We agreed we were doing a coin flip, and I won the coin flip.
That's what I'm explaining literally right
okay.
now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Anyway,
I'm
yes.
so sorry.
Accelerate elected with because he called the coin flip. Yes, that he would
I'm
have the
sorry.
final closing statement. So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It was an
it's
accident.
fine. It's fine.
All
So yeah,
right.
I guess we should just get into it. So Benji's gonna have the first opening statement here in the.
All right, I'm gonna start. taking
And
notes.
so topic 1 is on level design. So level design is just it could be anything like length of the level, alternate paths, what have you, everything that has to do with the actual levels you play in. So Benji,
Okay.
your 2
Real quick,
minutes.
wait,
start,
2 minutes start.
what do you have to ask?
Okay, how it works? So the opening statements for every
Oh wait,
section is
let me
2
stream.
minutes.
Let me stream my screen
Oh,
for y'all so
your
y'all can see the timer.
Sure
Yeah.
thing. That sounds
a
good.
good-
I
that's
imagine
a-
you can just edit out this whole
There you go.
section in post.
All right.
Good. All right. Cool.
All right, y'all see that?
Yep, I
Let
see
me
it.
see
All right, bet. All right, so Benji, your 2
Alright.
minutes starts now.
All right. So when it comes to level design, it's like I have a lot of issues with it. I will say though, there were three levels or 4 that I really like. Ocean Palace. No, yeah, Ocean. Oh my God, the first level, Ocean Palace, Seaside Hill, Ocean Palace, Frog Forest, and Egg Fleet. I really like those 4
Okay.
levels.
I'm gonna
Right?
agree. Oh, I'm sorry.
But after that, I cannot like these levels, man. It's like as soon as you get to like the second level after Ocean Palace, it kind of like degrades into like these linear hallways where you just have like these enemies rooms where you have to attack enemies, and especially in like I think Power Plant, the level repeats itself, I think, and I that's like, to me that just seems like lazy, right? And a lot of the level design kind of relies on like gimmicks, right? And it doesn't and overall it just doesn't feel designed like a Sonic level, right? There's a lot of like small platforms for the combat, and with the controls, which we'll get to later, that doesn't really bode well for me, right? I find often I'm just kind of like falling off a platform, or like again with the controls, like I'm slipping off because the controls are not really that like intuitive, right? And I think the worst case offender is Mystic Mansion, because that level for me on average takes like 8 minutes, right? Or 8 minutes, and like on my worst attempt it was like 10, right? Because that level is just like so. And don't get me started on those freaking tails pulleys that you have to fly up and get on the exact angle and press like some button that's like the worst, right? But like overall I think the level design is, after like the first level it gets really linear. The level design is not like a Sonic game, and it feels just like not intuitive at all.
All right, time's up. Accelerate, you have
All
2
right.
minutes for opening statements. Go.
Okay, first of all, I want to preface this by saying I agree with you wholeheartedly. Mystic Mansion is a terrible level. It is a sin of Sonic Heroes game design, but I'd like to defend the level design philosophy on a whole overall. I find that the levels aren't really linear in Heroes. I mean, some of them can be, like some of them are super linear, but a lot of them do have a lot of different ways to traverse them, specifically vertically, much like the classic games. And your argument that the games aren't really designed like a Sonic game, I beg to differ on that, because it's kind of a spin on what the classics were doing and what the adventure games were doing, because a thing that they did was they would have paths that were faster but harder to get to, and paths that were slower but easier to get to, and they would have like, you would like easier, slower paths and harder, faster paths. That's the Sonic level design philosophy, and Heroes kind of adapts to that in a very specific way. What it does is it puts faster, speedier, lanes, grind rail sections, more precision-based stuff up top or in harder-to-reach areas, and then on lower areas you would have combat. You'd have like combat rooms, and that's the level design philosophy. It's like a spin on level design philosophy. And I also really enjoy how like they made it wide open and yet still. They made it like fast, but still gave it a lot of explorative value. In addition, I feel like a lot of the enemy rooms in Heroes aren't actually required. Like sometimes they are. Again, Mystic Mansion, terrible stage. But a lot of them you can actually skip past by just like running past it, or with a well-timed momentum jump or something. So I'm not personally bothered by that. I understand like why that's not really appealing to a lot of people. I cannot see that as a bad choice for level design, in my opinion. I don't understand why that's really an issue. And also, fellow Frog Forest enjoyer, massive appreciate that. That is by far the best level in Heroes, in my opinion. Anyway, that's all for the opening.
All right,
All right.
Well, this sucks. All right, so Benji, your 1 minute for a rebuttal starts now.
All right, so while I can see where you're coming from with like the alternate paths, it's still kind of linear, because like sure, it's more in line. It's like they took the 2D level design but like put it in a hallway. That's the best way I can describe it. And also, we're not talking about controls right now, but like level design is only half of it. Part of the reason why I don't like the level design is the controls really don't help in that matter. And also, some levels like what Casino Highway, I forgot what's called, with the pinball, you can have, I'm sorry, the Frontiers pinball section, I would play that a million times over rather than play the pinball in freaking that level. All right. And again, a lot of like you're like saying, oh, you could just skip the combat. I feel like that's the same issue that I see when people try to defend Unleashed. Yeah, you can like skip the combat, but isn't that like going at like kind of breaking the game? That kind of like, if part of the game is skipping the level design, is that really good?
Benji, your time has concluded.
Yep, I see. That was my last statement.
All right. So I'd like to say that in Unleashed, the combat, it is very deliberately a beat 'em up, so it's not really possible to skip the combat. And again, the difference in Unleashed is that there aren't higher paths to avoid combat through skilled play, because it's a beat 'em up. You're supposed to fight the enemies with all the combat moves and stuff. And as far as the linearity is concerned, I feel like what is too linear is kind of debatable. I don't have a problem with it. I understand why you would. That's very much preference. That's not really something that can be that is something that can be objectively measured, but it's a preference thing. And as far as the controls go, I'll get to that later. I have a defense plan for those controls. And in general, I don't really understand with the I just don't really understand the argument that it's too linear, although I can see where you're coming from with that. I will agree with you that the pinball can be finicky. I'm used to it, but it's not very good, I agree there.
All right. Benji, go.
All right. So I wanted to bring this up. My problem with the linearity is that it kind of like funnels you down like one way, right? You like sure, you have different, like, again, best example is Seaside Hill. You have so many different ways, but then it kind of stops, right? Like, you get into, like, Metropolis, you get to Power Plant, you get to, like, Casino Street, you get to all these different levels, and out of nowhere, the level just becomes super linear, and, like, you have no real way to experiment besides, breaking the game. And I really have tried to give this game a fair shot, but, like, all the skips that I've pulled off either comes down to, like, border passing or, like, breaking the game in some way. It's linear to, like, it's linear and restricting. That's what I have, because it funnels you down playing the level one way, and that's frustrating. I hate when games do that, and that's why I love the adventure games so much.
All right, Accelerate, go.
All right, I think I get it. I get what you're saying. Is that you're saying that even though it has technically has a variety of paths, they all just kind of funnel you down to the same place. I would actually argue that all of the levels do that, and, like, the only 3D Sonic level I can think of that doesn't really do that is, like, is like the beta version of Windy Valley from Sonic Adventure 1. But I don't even think that's a bad thing, because the thing is, with Heroes, even though some of the levels might have less paths as they go on, they're still wide open, and those paths don't exist to provide you new ways to play the level. They provide you opportunities to explore, to find new ways to maybe, like, do a different strategy, like when defeating enemies, to collect different power cores to level up different characters. Maybe you want to get more Team Blast energy. Maybe you just want to find a cool secret or something. Maybe there's a special stage key off to the distance, something like that. It's just they promote exploration while still being linear, more traditional Sonic levels, regardless of anything. Like, they are still exploration based, even though they're simpler.
All right, Benji, go.
So the thing is, though, what you said about, like, most Sonic levels doing that, I don't think that's the case. My biggest example is Final Rush from Adventure 2. That level lets you beat that level so many different ways, not on some bullshit gimmicks, purely on skill. My best example, if you know, like, towards, like, halfway through the level, there's a section where you have to go vertically up on a bunch of, like, rails, and if you're, like, skilled and you jump at the right time, you can, like, skip a good portion of that. And sure, it's linear, quote unquote, but, like, the game rewards you for doing those skips. It gives you, like, 50 rings and a faster way to get through it. Heroes, I feel like there's no real opportunity for me to use my skill, again, besides breaking the game in, like, a way to, like, skip the level, where it's, like, naturally just letting me, like, the game intended for me to do that skip. I don't feel that in Heroes a lot. And that's really all I gotta say.
All right.
Okay, I understand what you mean. I do agree with you that, Adventure 2 and Adventure 1, obviously much better games than Heroes. I'm not saying that Heroes is, like, perfect or anything. But I do want to say that I don't think you're right about this, because, like, a lot of it's true, there are a lot of unintended skips in Heroes, but a lot of the time there are intended skips. Like, for example, in Frog Forest, the frogs cause platforms to spawn that are more precarious, but if you're able to stay on top of them, you basically get to skip a lot of combat. Or actually, no, it's Lost Jungle I'm thinking of. And in, like, Ocean Palace, there's a slope that goes up, and you jump off of it, and you access a whole upper path that you can get to otherwise, but it's just slower to do so. And the whole thing is that, like, like I said, I think it's a spin on what they, no pun intended, I think it's a spin on what they've already been doing. I don't even think, like, Final Rush is obviously way more diverse, but it's just, like, I agree, Final Rush is better, but I feel like Heroes is, like, a scaled down version of what the adventure games and the classics did, while introducing a lot of its own gameplay gimmicks itself.
All right. Go.
The thing is, though, I don't know. I don't really get that with Heroes. Like, again, you're saying, like, Ocean Palace, Seaside Hill, Frog Forest, like, those are, like, some of the best levels in the game, right?
Lost Jungle.
But, like, I don't, like, again, with Casino Street, with the pinball, like, until you get out of that pinball, you can't find a different way to skip the pinball section. You can't, like, find platforming. You have to do that, right? Or, oh my god, I'm blanking on all the levels in the game right now. Mystic Mansion, do I have to say, need I say more, right? What else? Oh my god, I'm blanking on the levels, but, shoot, what comes after, Rail Canyon, bro. Rail Canyon, like, that level is, like, you have to, like, do some crazy skips, like, it's like, if you don't want to be bored to death, you basically have to skip the whole level. It's
all
like,
right, time's up. Accelerate.
All right, so we'll get to rail grinding mechanics later. I like Rail Canyon, and we'll get to why later. But it's grind rail mechanics and pinball. I get what you're saying. Like pinball, there are opportunities, like legitimate opportunities, not just unintended opportunities in Casino Park to skip the pinball. And there's only really like one or two. So yeah, the pinball, I agree, it's not great. Again, like I'm used to it, but that doesn't make it good. Like just because I'm used to Mystic Mansion, still a terrible level. And like yeah, Mystic Mansion is awful. That is the funnily level. That is the one that has the forced enemy gates. I hate levels like that, but the point is, I would argue there are a lot more well-designed stages in Heroes than bad once you get to grips with with the unique way in which Heroes plays. Even if you're not into it, I feel like more of the levels are well-designed than not. And there are some really terribly designed levels, but I think there are more good ones than not. And by the way, Lost Jungle is a different stage than Frog Forest. I was referring to Lost Jungle and not Frog Forest. That one's it's not as good.
All right, we'll do one more rebuttal each, and then we'll move on. So Benji, go.
Alrighty.
All right, but like again, like for me, that big issue is like linearity. Like again, like sure, there are a lot of different ways for like there are ways like maybe you can like choose a different pulley. Like I know in oh my god, again I'm breaking the level on power plant. There's like you can choose like a different pulley to go up, and like that takes you. It's very minuscule. It's very like subtle, and it's not like to the same effect as like again Final Rush or like even like looking at the new games like Shadow Generations where you like I would say that what they did with Rail Canyon in that game, if they did that in 06 in Heroes, it would honestly be a good level bearing the controls again, but like it just doesn't feel like the game gives me a lot of opportunities naturally to really do anything or experiment because again the level design and the controls, which is the controls is just like a big part of why the level design doesn't work.
All right, accelerate, go.
Okay, so like I said, we're gonna get to controls, but the point is that like I feel like what is and isn't too linear is that's very subjective because like it's just like it's how Cybershell compared it. Like, what flavor of ice cream do you prefer? Like, I agree. I also prefer Adventure 2's method of handling level design. I love Final Rush. That's one of my favorite Sonic levels in history. And yeah, I agree. Most of the stages in Heroes don't really live up to Final Rush, absolutely, but like. I feel like there is enough there to keep me at least consistently engaged. It's not for everyone. If you want more, I don't blame you, especially after Adventure 2. I can understand being disappointed that this game is a downgrade, but I even if it's worse, I can't bring myself to say that it's bad. I still think it's good. Like, I still think it's great. I think that in those linear hallways, even when there are linear hallways, I think the game makes use of that space, and that's something with Sonic Forces. The issue is what they did with those 2 hours, not the 2 hours themselves.
All right, so now we're going to move on to controls and gameplay. So this includes everything like, how the game, obviously, like game. You guys get the idea. Benji, you have 2 minutes to go.
Yep. So I'm going first.
Yep, your time has started.
All right, so the second half controls. I don't think the controls are very good. I think. Not only is it like it's not only just a downgrade in like general controls, but like everything is a downgrade. I feel like they removed features from past Sonic games. Just it's the best way I can describe it is if you played the Modern Warfare 2 2022, they changed the perk system in that game to be this system where you like instead of like normally you would select your perks and you would have those perks throughout the whole game, they just randomly changed it to where you charge up your perks over the game. It was a change for the sake of change, and it was a bad change. I feel like, for example, instead of the spin dash, Sonic has the rocket excel, which I think is an unnecessary change. Tails' flying is extremely nerfed. He has like a cap, right? And Knuckles can't even climb anything, and his glide is severely nerfed. Again, it's just feeding into that idea of you have to play the game this way. You can't experiment with the controls. The most I could say is sure, you can like do something cool with the Power Excel, but with every other character, you cannot really experiment. Again, just funneling you down one way of playing the game. And in general controls, right, I don't think they're good. I think the acceleration is a bit weird. I think like it's slippery. And I think, again, the level design with the slippery controls and the fast acceleration doesn't really help because I feel like I'm falling off. The combat is a whole other issue, which I'll talk about in a bit. But I don't think they handled it right, especially when it comes to terms with the Sonic game. I think it goes against when you play a Sonic game and you think how a Sonic game works, the combat kind of goes against it, and I'll get to that later. But overall, I think the controls are downgrade, and a lot of changes are changes for the sake of change that didn't need to happen.
All right, accelerate.
All right, again,
it starts now.
Sorry. Okay, I understand being frustrated at change. I get that. But I'd like to just point out a few things. First of all, the Rocket Excel isn't actually less powerful than the Spin Dash. It's like about as powerful when you transition it into a roll, and it knocks away enemies, so that's pretty good. The nerfed flying, again, I can understand that. I feel like it was a little too powerful in Sonic Adventure 1, but if you're disappointed with that, I get it. The glide nerf. Now, the triangle dive isn't really a glide. It can be used like a glide with some momentum, which is very useful, but like it's more like the hovering of the mechs, and that's because the power characters is like a mix of mech gameplay and the Knuckles gameplay from the adventure games, and I'll explain that in more depth later, but the point is, that's something. And in addition, I'd like to counteract the idea that it's slippery, because slippery would imply like ice physics. Low acceleration, low deceleration, and high top speed, making it hard to gain speed and hard to slow down. Heroes is not that. Heroes is loose. It has quick acceleration, quick deceleration when you just let go of the stick, and high top speed. The only thing it has is the high top speed. So it can be unruly, and then this is just as Sonic. It can be unruly, it can be hard to control, but it's not slippery. Like, it's not hard. It's hard to maneuver, but it's not hard to stop. It's not like you're not sliding around. You're like, the strafing can be a little bit sensitive or undersensitive, depending on what version you're playing. GameCube version, bad. No, I'm just kidding. But it just in general, and either way, if you're having issues with the speed characters and how loose they can be, you could just switch to the power or flight characters. They go much slower. But the advantage is that they're easier to control, and this is good for like tight platforming. Like, you want to use Tails for tight platforming, because if you try to use Sonic on tight platforming, you're going to die, because Sonic in this game is not built for tight platforming. It wasn't a change for the sake of change. It was deliberate. It was a deliberate design choice. It was a risk-reward thing. It was a trade-off.
All right, so let me switch the timer real quick to 1 minute, right. And Benji, you start now.
Okay, so now my issue comes with the combat. I think the combat is very basic. I think it's people say like, oh, there's so much depth to the combat. I don't think it's that deep. I think it's like once you get Sonic to level 3, it's like you could just overpower everything with Sonic. But my main issue is how all the other characters control. Like I said, with Tails, I feel like his flying is very nerfed. He has a height cap. He can't go above a certain height, right? And Knuckles, that power punch. And I know you've said before that, oh, if you don't want to fly forward, just don't move and you won't fly forward. But why? Why in a Sonic game where my natural instinct is to hold forward, to go forward, why do I have to now all of a sudden think like, oh, I can't move forward because I'm good? Like, that's just not naturally what I'm thinking. So I think that's just not a good design. I think that's just poor game design when it comes to Sonic. Maybe if they had him like Knuckles, like no matter what, he would just have to triple jab and just not go for it. You know what I'm saying?
All right, accelerate, go.
Okay, so the combat is actually Knuckles' combat is actually not that basic. Of course you have the level combo attacks, but then you also have jabs. You also have homing punches, which are homing punches. They're used to close the distance. And as far as don't hold forward goes, well, I mean, it works that way in the adventure games too. If you don't hold forward as Knuckles and you punch, you won't go that far, and if you do, you'll go far and you'll home in on enemies. That's how it worked as Knuckles in Adventure 2. Now, the Sonic at level 3 argument is actually not correct, because Sonic is useful on, like, weak enemies. Knuckles and Tails are still very useful for stunning enemies, for taking out flying enemies in quick succession. Knuckles is useful for taking out enemies from, like, the air with Fire Dunk. That's another part of the depth to it. And the height cap on Tails, I'm sorry, that's actually not correct. It's a height cap from where you started flying. So if you just want to get a little distance and start flying, you'll have a higher height cap. It's not actually a height cap. Mm-hmm. Now, that's essentially all I wanted to say. I could probably say more, but I'm out of time.
All right, go.
Okay, so I get that Knuckles has all these different moves, and like Tail, and like I get, sure, it has some depth, but like again, it's also a similar issue to one. You'll just find a way that's the most efficient, right? And if you want to get past the level as quick as possible, you'll probably learn to do that, right? And And again, that's just an issue I have with Unleashed. I don't know why I'm throwing shades at Unleashed, right? But like, you have all these different combos, but eventually you just find the most efficient combos and just use that. So at that point, like, just get to level 3 Knuckles, do all the strong moves, or get to level 3 Sonic and do all that stuff. And I just feel like a lot of it just feels kind of trivial, right? And again, I just feel like, and with the level design, sure, like, Sonic is like a risk and reward with Sonic like on the platforms, but you're always gonna be on these platforms with all the characters, so it doesn't mesh well.
All
I don't
right,
think.
time's up. Accelerate. Go.
Okay, so I can't really understand your argument about like finding a way that's the most efficient being a bad thing. Like that's just called skill mastery. That's been a thing in every Sonic game ever, except I guess like Sonic Forces and I don't know, maybe I guess 06, that game's pretty automated, and Secret Rings. But the point is, I mean, those are all not very good games. Those are all bad games. But, like, I can't really understand, like, finding a way that's the most efficient to be a bad thing. Like, you want to experiment with the characters. If you find a way that works better than the others, that's just called being skilled. And my playstyle has evolved over time, just as it will for anybody who's, like, just as it will for most people who get into Heroes. I forgot what the second point you made. I think it had something to do with like the other characters on the platforms, and that's not really a detriment because like that means that you'll be able to switch to them quicker. And even if they're not on the platforms, you could just switch to fly formation and they'll just warp to your location. Except, to be fair, on those casino levels because the pinball is not great. I'll agree with you there.
All
you
right,
got me there.
Benji, go.
My issue with like the most efficient way is like Heroes is way too strict with it. I feel like it doesn't allow you to experiment. It feels like it wants you to do this one specific way. And at least with Unleashed, you don't have to do the most efficient way. You can do whatever combo you want. I feel like with Heroes, you are kind of like funneled down playing the game one specific way, and I feel like that's gonna get boring. I feel like that gets boring with any video game, right? And that's again why even with like I played like when you played Shadow Generations, sure, like you couldn't speed run the level and do the most efficient way, but like I love playing the level in so many different ways, finding all the different paths and just like exploring with the mechanics and the level design. And that's why it's like one of my favorite Sonic games. With Heroes, combining the really kind of like restrictive level design with the kind of restrictive controls where you have to like learn how to play one way, I don't think it's a good mesh. I think that makes it a little annoying.
Accelerate, go.
Well, I'd like to point out something here. There is no one right way to play Sonic Heroes. There is a wrong way, and that's just trying to bulldoze the game with one or two characters and only using the others when you need to, like absolutely need to. That's the wrong way to play, but there is no one right way to play Sonic Heroes. The game is built to encourage experimentation because a lot of those alternate paths that I mentioned require you to use different formations. You need to use those different formations on different paths, which explains you how to get the grips of how they all work, which explains all these things to you, and like you'll learn how to use the different characters and you'll choose which playstyle suits what you think is the most fun and what you want to prioritize the most for future combat related things. I don't agree that it's too strict either. I think it's, again, there are some moments where it can be strict, but like if you want to like swirl to get tornado swirl to get the helmets off of those big robots, you can do that, or you could just like skip them, or you could just bulldoze them, fire dunk them. However, there are a lot of different ways of approaching combat in Heroes frequently. Not always, but frequently.
All right, time's up. Benji, go.
I don't know. I feel like compared to a lot of Sonic games, like I feel like I can experiment I know I'm harping on a lot, but I feel like I can experiment with the level design and controls way more in Sonic Adventure 1 than, not even 2, just Adventure 1, than all 3 characters in one level with Heroes. And again, the thing is with Heroes, what you mentioned, that you said there's no right way, but there's a wrong way. Why should there be a wrong way to play the game? I think if there is a wrong way to play, and I don't want to hear like, oh, but I hear the argument all the time that, oh, but you have to learn how to play a fighting game or a racing game. Those are completely different genres. When I go into a platformer, I expect to know how to run, jump, do an attack. I don't want to learn how to play the right way. I don't want to learn the wrong, like, there shouldn't be a wrong way to play. Especially for a Sonic game where experimentation is so massive, I don't think there should be a wrong way to play.
All right.
Okay, so your argument about there not being a wrong way to play, I get where you're coming from, but also this game has a tutorial and it introduces a new unconventional spin on the established formula, and again, no pun intended with spin. I keep saying that, I'm sorry. It introduces a new unconventional spin on the established formula that will mean that you're going to be playing it wrong. And there is a way to play like Adventure Sonic wrong, like Adventure 2 wrong. The treasure hunting stages, there's absolutely a way to play those wrong. Same with like the mech stages. You don't want to just spam shoot. That's the wrong way to play Adventure 2 for sure. So I can't agree with that. And I also don't really think it's fair to compare this to better Sonic games. Like, I get it. Those games are better. Maybe you're let down by this being worse. And, you know, fair enough. I just don't understand how that automatically makes this one bad. Like, and this is a larger conversation, but I can't really get the idea that a game is out for the count for not being as good as a previous entry. And that's why I'm such a big zero gravity defender. Obviously, you know this about me. Yeah, that's just a thing. I don't know. I can't really get behind that idea.
I think we'll do one more round of rebuttals, but go.
All right. The thing is, I would understand that if the game came before, but this is already 2 games after we have an established formula that people like. And when they had this such deviation, which I get there's a tutorial and I get there's a way to learn the game, but it is not laid out to you in a really good way. You either have to like go out of your way to find it, like it's like there, and let's be realistic. Who's actually like opening up a game and like going to the tutorial? I am going to play the game first thing. I don't want to waste my time. I got a new game. I want to play it. Or if you're luckily you start off with the Amy, if you already knew the difficulty system of the characters, right? I don't think it teaches you, and you can read the manual all you like, but realistically, if you're a first player, you are not going to play a tutorial if it's not given to you off rip or read a manual. I want to go in and play a game because I bought it. I want to play it as soon as possible, and I think the game doesn't teach you that well.
Go.
All right, well, I'd like to preface this by saying I played the tutorial first because it's the tutorial. But either way, it's just like there's tutorialization in the levels too, and like it subliminally communicates things to you, just like the adventure games did. And actually, Zoomzyke did a really good video on why Seaside Hill is such an excellent tutorial stage, and it's a very good video, and it lays out exactly what I could say here in less words. But yeah, no, it does definitely teach you in the game itself, and you do have to pay attention. The hint rings are fairly obvious and all that. And again, I know the game came out after better games, but I still don't think that makes this game bad. I do not like Sonic Generations as much as Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors, and I know that's kind of a hot take, but I don't like it as much. It's still a decent game. I do not like it, but it's still a good game. And I understand why a lot of people love it, even though I don't like it as much. Like, I get that it came out after, but I don't think that's a reason to just throw it in the trash just because there are other games that do it better. There's still a unique reason to come back to this game over others if you're in that mood.
All right. So yeah, we're going to move on to the next topic because we're kind of like creeping into that already. But so the next topic is progression and structure. This covers everything from like the different
on my paper.
this comes from everything like the different stories and the 2-act setup, boss, just how the game is structured and how you play through it. So, let me add a minute, and Benji, go.
God, Jesus Christ. I am sorry. It's I can't even compare it to a Shadow, because at least with Shadow, it gives you different levels depending on your story. With Sonic Heroes, you are going to play this practically the same game 4 times if you want that final ending. And you could say, oh, but this level changes this up. Oh, this level is different. The characters play differently. I'm sorry. First of all, that's the same 14 levels back to back to back to back. And then, if I already didn't like the game the first time playing through, I'm going to be like in agonizing pain having to go and play every single campaign again. And again, and if you really want the secret, you have to get the Chaos Emeralds. And the way that the Chaos Emeralds work is so stupid. You have to find a key in the level, and if you get hit once with the key, you lose. You can't go to the special stage, and that I feel like that's so punishing for what. And I get it's like similar to the ring system, but like at least even in Sonic 1, the levels weren't super long, so if you got to the end with all your rings, fine, whatever. And in Sonic 2, it's even more forgiving because you find a checkpoint and there's a bunch of checkpoints throughout the whole level, and that's your chance to go to a special stage. In Sonic 3, you don't even need 50 rings. You just go find them, and that encourages exploration. In this game, you have to get the key, get to the end of the level, and not get hit. I'm stupid. Along with all this, like, the game having, I don't know what they're, and again, I know they were making this game like in under like 20 months, and I get it, but like at least like have like what Adventure 1 did, and have like some players not play certain levels, or have at least one original level for a story. You know what I'm saying?
All right, accelerate, go.
Okay, so a few things. I feel like the same game 4 times mentality is, I get it if you want to see that final ending, but you don't have to. Like, the reason that people make a big deal about the extra stages and the extra playstyles in Adventure 2 and not in Adventure 1 is because in Adventure 1, if you just want to play Sonic, you can. It's the same here. If you just want to play the 1, you can. Now, the fact that the gameplay styles are similar, that is a double-edged sword, because like you said, if you don't like it, if you didn't like it the first time, you're not going to like it the other 3 times, unlike Adventure 2, where if you're not into, like, say, the treasure hunting levels, there's still 2 other playstyles for you to mess around with. But, like, here, it's like, if you like the game, good. There's a whole game of it waiting for you. If you don't, well, there's a whole game of stuff you're not going to like. So that is a double-edged sword, in my opinion, and that's the weakness of this, is the thing. And the Chaos Emeralds, I agree they should have been handled better, but I also don't think they're that bad, because you don't lose them if you have a shield. Like, if you have a shield and you get hit, you won't lose any Chaos Emeralds. Now, are the levels too long for the Emerald system? Sometimes, yes, but hey, you could just collect them all as team rows, or spread out your playthroughs across the campaigns. If you miss one, you don't need to go back. You could just collect them without the campaigns, or just don't bother. The game is designed to allow you to just not do it. You don't have to. I mean, I get that it's for, like, the story, and I have a story defense, but, like, you don't have to. There's no reason to. I mean, there is a reason to if you like it, but if you don't like it, then just don't. Like, just play through the one campaign and say, hey, I'm not that into this, I don't want to play the rest of it, and that's just the end of it. That you don't need to play more than the game requires you to. It's not like someone's, like, holding your head at gunpoint and forcing you to play through these other things you don't like before getting back to the main thing that you like, or like, playing all these other ones to get to the final story. It's not even like Adventure 2. If you weren't into the other gameplay styles and you just wanted to play Sonic, you couldn't do that. You can do that here, and again, that's a double-edged sword. I prefer the way Adventure 2 does it, but I can't get behind the idea that this is anything terrible.
All right, let me add a minute. All right, Benji, go.
The thing is with this game, right? I think you just said it myself. Like, if you don't like the game, don't play. Like, after the first playthrough, just don't play the other stories. But that kind of like is that kind of like concerning, because like if the game was not fun the first time and you don't want to play. That's kind of telling of the game's quality. I don't know, because I feel like with Adventure, like, I would get to Sonic and finish Sonic's story. I would be interested to get to Tails' story. I liked Tails' story. Get to Knuckles' story, and like I feel like even with its game's weaknesses, I always felt like there was something on the way that was different. Even if it was like less levels or something, I feel like there was something different on the way. With this game, it's the same, maybe with like some characters playing differently, or like some placements. And I don't know, I just feel like if the game doesn't want you to keep playing, I feel like it's kind of failed at its job.
All right, accelerate, go.
Okay, the thing about, like, not enjoying it the first time, this is something we're going to continue to debate. This is, like, that's what I said, it's a double-edged sword. If you didn't enjoy it the first time, you're not going to enjoy it the other 3. If you did enjoy it the first time, you are going to enjoy it the other 3, and that's dependent on all the other stuff that we're going to talk about, and that we have talked about throughout the rest of this. Now, again, SA1 encouraging more is just, like, if you weren't into Sonic's gameplay in Adventure 1, I know you were, I was, but if you weren't, you don't want to play the rest of it, that's just how some people are going to play it, and that's the same kind of thing with Sonic Heroes. And I feel like the game does enough to differentiate the playthroughs. Again, that's very subjective. Like, what is enough might be different for you. I think the fact that some of the teams have completely unique sections of level design, and the fact that even the minor ones make them feel so different, combined with the difference in moveset and team blast effect, it all just combines to make them feel substantially different to the point where I could play any one of them at the drop of a hat. But again, that's very subjective. It's not something that you have to.
Time's up. Benji, go.
And the thing is, again, like, even when it comes to the story, I think this is a whole different section, but like, well, I don't know if we're gonna talk about story later, but the story in this game is like one of the weakest.
It's the next topic. I wouldn't talk.
That's
about
the next topic.
No.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh,
but like,
no.
okay, but like to feed on to what I'm saying, if like the story in past Sonic, okay, bro, I'm talking about story. I kind of really said all I have to say. Like, I feel like the game doesn't do a good job at like compared to a lot of Sonic games where I want to keep playing, right? And I feel like that issue could have just been very easily avoided if, again, less levels for some characters, maybe have at least one original. Like, it would have been so cool if Shadow's story had an original level that like delved into his side of the story. That would have been so sick. But like, no, I have to play the same 14 levels again and the same 14 bosses with kind of different variety that doesn't really do much, right? That's my kind of big issue.
All right, go.
Okay, I wholeheartedly disagree that this is one of the worst stories in the series, but again, we will get to that soon. Now, here's something interesting. You said that the game doesn't encourage you to play more of it. What, did you even start the timer, SF?
Oh, sorry.
You didn't start the timer. Okay, so like I was saying, if you if the game doesn't encourage you to play more, then don't, I guess. Like, if you're not into this story, then what motivation do you have to complete all 4 campaigns? If you don't, then just don't. Nobody's forcing. If you don't have any reason to want to see the rest of the story, and if you don't have any reason to want to play more of the game, then just don't. Just play one campaign and be done with it. And you'll have the one campaign, you'll have that campaign's gameplay, you'll have that campaign's levels, and that'll just be the end of it. You don't have to play any more than that just for the sake of experiencing the rest of a story that you're not enjoying. And again, I have a lot of things to say about the story. I think it's really good, but I will get to that later. But I'm just saying, if you're not enjoying the story, then just then nothing is forcing you to finish the game. Like, even in Adventure 1, if you were into that story, that's something motivating you to finish the game. If you don't get that, then just don't, you know? Then you're like 4 times, it's not really an issue.
All right. Benji, go.
I mean, true, yeah. If you don't like the game, don't play it. But like, my biggest issue again, like, I wanted, like, what if I like wanted to, like, I just feel like, again, comparing it to the pack, I kind of said it, yeah. Like, this game doesn't do a good job at making me want to play again, right? I feel like even with the issues of Adventure 2, like, I do not like the mech stages. I do not like I kind of mess with the treasure hunting, but like, even with this game's gripes, I feel like I'm like, oh, I get to play the next Sonic level. Oh, I get to see what's next in the story. Or like, maybe I do like a mech level or a treasure hunting level. Like, oh, I get to play that. With Heroes, I feel like this game doesn't have that. I feel like it's like, oh, I have to play the same game again with like, it doesn't do. And I feel like I'm being a dead horse and a broken record. But like, that's
All right,
that's
yeah.
my
Okay. We're gonna let Accelerate respond one more time, and then we're gonna move on. So go.
All right, so you just kind of proved my point, though. Like, you were saying that it's not really encouraging you to play more, to just not play games that you don't like, and you said that you were beating a dead horse, and yeah, you kind of are beating a dead horse, because it's like, the thing is, with the game, again, if you don't want to play more, then don't. Like, if this game isn't, like, as pressing or dramatic, like, when you're playing Sonic, it's not as much of a mystery as to what's going on. They drop little hints of story that I'll elaborate on, but it's not really as much of an intriguing thing that would make you want to play all 4 stories. So just don't. Like, if you didn't enjoy it the one time, don't play it more than you need to. Just say, yeah, I'm not into this. I didn't like this. I thought this was very bad. And just don't play the rest of it. Like, it doesn't need to go on for longer than it needs to if you don't want to know what happens. If you don't want to know what happens and you don't want to play more of it, then don't. Because, like, the game does not force you to. Like Adventure 1, the game does not force you to. You can just stop after Team Sonic. Needlemouse stopped after Team Sonic, and that was when he liked the game.
All right, so now we're going to move on.
I am out of space. I am out of space on this paper. Can we, like, can I go grab another piece of paper?
Yeah, you can go get another piece of paper.
Okay, I'll be right back. You can just cut this part out of the video.
That's what
Intermission.
No, we're leaving it in. We're leaving it in.
All right, guys.
All right,
guys. So how we doing today? I'll give you this in the video.
Yeah, sure.
All right,
everything is in.
I want to tell y'all about a hit video game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Bro had to think about it for a second.
Came out. I was thinking about which game to talk about. I think Final Fantasy Rebirth is my game of the year. I think it's the best game I've ever played in like a decade. right? Right? Or at least the game that came out this decade, right? Like, I think it's a mastercraft in storytelling, in level design, and game design, and combat, and like it's the best way to describe Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It is the most game I've ever gamed, right? There's so much game, and the quality of game in that game is so astounding that it's shocking that they made that game in like 3 years.
All right, I have returned. I have a new piece of paper.
Okay,
What's the next
Benji,
topic,
we're talking about story.
Story.
Pretty self-explanatory. So Benji, go.
Now,
Oh, God.
the story, I don't really care about the story, right? I don't think it's the worst story. I think that story that goes to like either Sonic Boom, Forces, or '06. I think this story is just kind of inoffensive, right? I think it's just it's very obvious that they were trying to like make it very kid friendly because it's the first game on like the Nintendo. It's the first like multi-platform Sonic game. They want to get as many characters in there as possible, so you have all these different stories. So I get they didn't want to write like all these big stories for all these different characters like they did with the adventure games, right? But then at the same time, I feel like it's like, I mean, yeah, I just kind of feel indifferent, except for Shadow's story. I actually kind of mess with Shadow's story because it's like the first time we're seeing him after Adventure 2. We think he's dead, and like the whole story is him like going. And like, I mean, honestly, besides the actual plot, I actually don't mind the story. I think the interactions with the characters are interesting. I think those little dialogue sections where like they're talking in between levels is pretty, especially with Shadow Rouge and Omega. That's like my favorite dialogue interactions in the whole game. I think it's weakest in Amy. Yeah, even if like it's weakest in Amy's, in my opinion. I don't think it's even that bad. What it really comes down to is the plot. I think it's very cheesy. It's very lazy. Like, sure, you have like Eggman's gonna destroy the world 3 days. He has Neo Metal. I think it's very basic, right? When you had like, again, I'm going back to past Sonic games, where you had like like Shadow and like his backstory and like the characterization in those games were so good. And I feel like my biggest issue with this game is that the characters kind of feel watered down in like some moments, and I feel like that's like my biggest offense with the story. But overall, I actually don't mind it. I think it's kind of just inoffensive, and sometimes it's kind of enjoyable.
All right, well, I before we move on to Accelerate, I'm just going to say like we're probably not going to spend too much time on this topic, man.
Okay.
So yeah, let's go Accelerate. Go.
All right, here's the thing. So I'm actually surprised that you were as lenient on it as you were. Like when you called the story worse than Generations on that one episode of the Radical podcast, I dipped. I was surprised to hear you say that because I was like, in my mind, Generations has an atrocious story, but like whatever, that's a separate topic. But the point is, I don't really have an issue with something being more simplistic. I don't see that as anything bad. And the thing is, the story isn't just Eggman's gonna take over the world in 3 days. That is like the fake out. That's the setup for the beginning of Sonic's story that introduces a larger mystery that is spread across all the other characters in addition to Shadow's mystery, and that's really cool. And I like how the mystery builds on previous games. Like we learn at the end how Neo Metal Sonic, Metal Overlord, is like a culmination of Metal Sonic's rage. That's cool. I agree with you that Team Rose's interactions are probably the weakest, but it's kind of ironic that they do that because they're arguably the most important to the actual plot at hand, like Froggy and Chocola and Neo Metal Chaos, Sonic, Shadow. They're the most relevant to the plot at hand. Now, I will say one thing. I'm going to be using the Japanese story for reference, not out of a sense of JP purism, because truly I think JP purists are the absolute scum of this fandom, and I hate them. But more, we can agree there. But more out of a sense of artistic integrity to the original vision, and I think that would go for any language that a story is originally written in. For like Frontiers' story, that's written in English. That's best experience in English. That should be judged from the English-speaking version. Same with like Lost World. I hate Lost World stories so much. I hate it so much. I can't really equate simple with bad, because like I really love the stories of Sonic Rush, Sonic and the Secret Rings. I've come around on Ryder's story a lot lately. Like I know I'm the Ryder's guy, but I wasn't a big fan of Ryder's story until recently, and I was like, actually, this isn't that bad. And I've come around on that lately. I can't equate simple with being bad. A story can still be fun even if it's small, and I think Heroes is fun and interesting, and I think it has a lot going for it that I wish it expanded on more. There's a lot of story here I wish was told more in cutscenes, and I think that would really do well in a remake.
All right. Well,
let's do like one rebuttal.
Do y'all want to do that?
Yeah, sure. One more rebuttal from the both of us.
Okay. But
All right,
go,
and then
Benji.
we'll move on to something else.
Well, okay, I did say it's simple, but I don't think it's bad necessarily. Like, I agree with you there. But my issue with it being kind of simple, and like all of the interesting stuff being in the gameplay is that it's not really handled. Like, it's not really like tackled as thoroughly as I like would hope. Like the mystery, like I forgot to mention. Yeah, it's like it's the reveal that Neo Metal is actually the real villain. But like I feel like that's not really that focus until like at like later on in the game, right? I feel like again just looking back at all the stories, like you have the legend of like the Echidna and Perfect Chaos and the lore, and like you have like Shadow in Adventure 2. You have the whole plot there. I feel like it's so intriguing and so enticing, and when you just go to like Heroes, it's like it's a bit of a downgrade in my opinion. I feel like it's not bad at all. I don't think it's terrible. I just think for me, just this is a personal preference. I just like a bit more like not convoluted, just more like in-depth stories. Right. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, accelerate, go.
All right, I totally understand what you're getting at. Like, if you're just not, that's just a preference thing. I also prefer complex characters. I like simple stories and I like complex stories. I love Sonic Adventure 2. That is my favorite story in the whole series. And I agree. I'm probably the only human being on the planet Earth who loved Sonic Adventure 2 and then hopped right into Heroes and was like, yes, this is completely normal. I see nothing wrong with this. I'm still enjoying myself. I don't get the idea of just like this anti-simplicity thing. Again, if you're not into it, fine. I get it. Too under lore wise, like too little lore. I would argue that this game is actually built up to in the 10 years preceding, like the 10 preceding years since Metal Sonic had been introduced, where he'd slowly started to fade in relevancy. He'd become less of a presence, and Meikawa, that was a really good idea that Meikawa had to take his fading relevancy and turn it into a plot point. And he also really subtly dropped hints to it in a really interesting way, especially in like Team Rose and Chaotic stories where you don't even see him all throughout the game. I think that's really interesting, and I think his motivations are also really interesting. Okay, I'm sorry. I think his motivations are also really interesting. That's what I was going to say. But that's all. I just wanted to say I like it. I like the story.
So yeah, I think y'all found some middle ground there. That's kind of
we did. I was actually surprised that he didn't. I was expecting him to like hate it, but I was,
no, I don't hate it. I think that's like the one part of the game I'm like whatever about.
Really, I'm shocked. Honestly, I legitimately thought because like Needle Mouse compared this story to like as bad as the Meta era.
Bro,
and I was like,
listen, bro, you're talking to a guy who likes color story. So I'm not
like Needle Mouse. Needle Mouse likes colors. Hold on, Needle Mouse likes color story.
Let's move on, guys.
No, about me.
Guys,
you. Okay, I thought you were talking about.
What's the next one?
I just added.
No, that's fair.
I just thought of another topic on the fly too, so we're adding.
Wait, no, I didn't have time.
Don't worry. It's something that you all were probably expecting anyway, but I just kind of like forgot. You'll see. Please. We're doing topic 5 first.
Is it
so
closing
the
thoughts?
next topic.
I saw closing thoughts on there.
The next topic.
Okay.
Well, we have 2 topics left. So the next topic is the polish and the glitches and all of that stuff. How do they affect the game? So, Benji, go ahead.
So, I promise you, if this game wasn't as broken as it is, this game would be like 3 points up. I know all your arguments. You're gonna say like, oh, but the adventure games were oh so janky. Oh, you had to do this. It was like, it is not to the same level as this game. First of all, it doesn't help that this game has like these 1,000 different like 3 different versions, right? In like you have to play the GameCube version, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and like you have to like decipher which version is the worst. Which already, if you have to choose which version is the worst, I think that's kind of bad, right? Secondly, it doesn't matter which version you play, you're gonna find glitches, and I know you have some contention against this, but it is like part of learning to play the game that you have to learn where the glitches are and how to avoid them. And I not only did I ask Stickman, I asked 16 other heroes enjoyers. I'm not gonna name drop them because I want to keep their identity sealed.
Oh my god! How did you find that many?
I asked. I have connections, bro. I asked them, right? Only one of them said that it was not a requirement, but the 15 others, I asked them, they said that if you want to have a chance of having fun and learn how to play the game the right way, you have to learn to avoid the jank. It is like if that is a part of the game of high skill heroes, I don't. I'm sorry, bro. You lost me there. You lost me there. And I can like I'll be listing my glitches that I've experienced later. That'll be coming from my rebuttal. But I'm hold off for now. That's really all I got to say.
Okay,
All
well, first of all, you don't need to find the worst version of Heroes. The PS2 version is the worst. Everyone knows this. Which version is the best is somewhat contentious. I'd argue, I mean, it depends. I don't know. I need to play all of them. But the PS2 version is the worst. No arguing there. It doesn't matter whether you play the glitchy PC version. Doesn't matter whether you play the kind of sluggish GameCube version or the good Xbox version. PS2 is the worst, no matter what. Now, worse than the adventure games. Yeah, I guess I can understand. I mean, they were trying to port the framework to renderware. I get it. It is glitchier than Adventure. That doesn't hinder my experience because I already had jank awareness from Adventure 1 and 2, and I didn't think it got that much worse in Heroes. That's where I'll disagree with you, but it is worse, and I agree that is bad. I agree with you there. Now, the idea to paraphrase Kamala Harris, I should remind the former president that you're not running against Stickman Guides, you're running against me. And me says it's really not as big as a deal. It's not part of the skill mastery. It's just something that you're going to have to adapt to. Just like in the adventure games, just like in any early 3D game, really, Mario 64, you're just going to have to adapt to the fact that it's old and that it's kind of messy. It's kind of loose. And I understand how that could hinder your experience. I totally get it. It doesn't hinder mine. That's very much a thing that will depend on your playthrough, that will depend on the version you play, that will depend on who you are and what you're really used to when playing games. If you don't like if you think the jank into Heroes is too much, fine. I can't really argue with that. All I can say is I disagree. I don't think it's too much. If you think it's too much, fine. That's very subjective, and I get it, and I'm not really gonna hard argue that it's like the most polished game ever, because really it's not. It's a very flawed game. It's just a flawed game that I really love. I don't think it's as bad. I think it's blown a little out of proportion, much like how bad Sonic Forces is, really.
All right. Let me.
Do you see?
Go. Benji.
All right. So, yeah. I'm sorry, it was beautiful for a second. You see that GIF I put in chat?
No, actually, hang on. Let me just take a look at this.
That
all right,
was me the whole time.
Oh, right. Is that why I heard the clapping sounds?
Yeah.
Okay. So for context, for the visual, for the audio listeners, he sent me that GIF of the bald guy clapping and laughing because he's like he sent me that GIF and he's like watching basketball.
Bro, you chose to bring this up. This is on you.
All right, fine. Quickly.
This is your fault.
I'm sorry. Let me speak then. I'm sorry. Let me tell you like some of the glitches I've experienced. All right. I flew off a loop while holding forward. Nothing happened. I just flew over. A spring decided not to work and just dropped me to my death. I flew off countless platforms. I fell off one of the fucking lily leapfrog things. I forgot what they're called. I'm having a blank. Just to name a few. All right,
yeah, your shit's up. Accelerate, go.
All right, so the falling off of platforms thing isn't actually a glitch. That is just like a control issue. Like if you're having issues with control, if you're skidding around or homing punching to your doom, the game is specifically programmed to not bring you to a stop on ledges if you're skidding or homing punching, or if you're a fly character because you can save yourself. That's actually just like in the adventure games. It's like that then too. And like if you're kicking, whatever, it won't stop you then. Now, should it? For skidding, I definitely think so. For punching, I can't really see that. The spring not working. I don't know which one you're talking about, so I'm just gonna take your word for that. The flying off loop, that only happens if you're not holding forward or if you're holding like backward or something. You would have to like take your controls off of it. Maybe your controller disconnected, or maybe you were playing the PS2 version. I don't know. But the point is, I believe that happened, but it also happens in the adventure games.
All right, Benji.
It's not really a great defense.
The thing
but
is,
there it is,
with adventure games, I can maybe like count on my fingers how many times I've really glitched and died. With Heroes, I can write you a whole essay on how many times I've died because of bullshit, right? I'm sorry, this game is not fundamentally, it is technically, on a technical level, broken.
Yeah, fundamentally would imply conceptual.
It is like, doesn't work. And what you said earlier, that you just have to deal with it and like Adapt? Why does the game have to be so glitchy to the point where you have to adapt? That's stupid. I think that's stupid. I didn't have to adapt to the glitches in any of the adventure games. Sure, they have glitches and like they happened, but I never had to adapt to the glitches. They just happened every once in a while. I'm like, oh, okay, restart the level, and I just played on my merry way. Here, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to remember to hold forward on this loop, do this thing, and I have to make sure that I homing attack on this. By the way, it was in Seaside Hill. Something broke with the homing attack, and I just didn't.
Right.
I have to.
Okay,
so
so here's the thing. You don't have. Sorry.
Sorry.
So I never
you're good.
said that you have to adapt to the glitches. I never said that you have to know where they are. I'm just saying you have to kind of accept the fact that this game is older and you'll experience the occasional glitch here and there. And if you experience a lot, fine. I'm not gonna say you're a liar. That's not. I'm not gonna say you're lying. You didn't experience glitches. That'd be stupid of me. You hate this game for a reason, clearly. But I'm saying I can't really at least the glitches are definitely consistent. Like where they happen, it is consistent. If you don't hold forward through the loops, you're gonna die. That's consistent on every single loop in the entire game. And even if you were holding forward, maybe you were like holding backwards or something, or maybe you were holding right. I don't know. You need to hold forward. Look. I can't really defend this because this isn't really as nuanced of an issue as story or controls or presentation or gameplay concept. It's just kind of a how much can you take, and if you can't take a lot, if you can't handle it, no, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm joking about that last part. I'm joking. I wasn't serious. I'm not serious. I want you to know I wasn't serious about it. Okay.
It's fine, bro. It's fine. Don't worry about it. The thing is, it's like, yeah. I mean. Yeah, you kind of said it yourself. Like it's like it is consistent, and like, but like, okay, I don't understand. I was holding forward, I wasn't holding back, and I didn't fall off. I flew to the side. That I don't know how you explained that. I just flew to the side. I don't know how that happened. It annoyed me, right? But like it's consistent. I feel like, and again, with what you said about the controls not being like the high acceleration with level design like this, I don't think high acceleration works. It works for the boost games because you're constantly going in a straight line, but here it's trying to do like a kind of like adventure-esque level design with that such high acceleration. That's just like it doesn't work that well. And I feel like again with the game being super glitchy, I feel like this like the chance of something happening that is out of my control is much higher than even like look at a game like whatever you know what I was gonna say.
All right,
Okay, so I know what you mean, and here's the thing: the high acceleration. I want to fight you on this. I completely disagree that the high acceleration is bad because, like, I don't know if you've ever tried to play Heroes with like a mod to restore the adventure physics. It is so slow, like it is unplayably slow. You kind of need to go fast during those speed lanes if you want to get through the levels at a reasonable time. It's just the Adventure Sonic is just too slow in the hero stages because they're just so big. Now, the high acceleration on the speed characters works in speedy sections. It doesn't work in tighter sections or combat arenas or tight platforming. And that's like 2/3 of the game. The tight platforming combat sections, you use the other two characters for that. And they don't have high acceleration. Or they have high acceleration, low top speed, like Tails. But the point is, the acceleration works sometimes. It won't work always, but that's just the nature of the character switching. Sometimes you want to use one, sometimes you want to experiment, use another. Sometimes divergent paths will happen where you can use anybody. And as far as the holding forward thing goes, I believe you that it happened. I'm sorry that it happened. I hope it doesn't happen again. I guess. I don't know.
I think we'll do one more rebuttal each, so go.
One more rebuttal each. Okay, got it.
The thing is, though, I feel like I can't really cut this game any... Like, again, I know they developed this game in, like, 20 months. They probably had no time.
How dare you insult
to like
Takashi Iizuka.
Right, I know, like he made the whole game by himself. But I'm tired. I'm done excusing them, bro. I'm sorry. A game that is this volatile, I'm sorry.
Word.
Like, I know it's like it should. Like, I'm sorry, bro. I can't like reliably play the game without like being if I'm constantly like you keep saying, if I have to constantly think like, oh, a glitches might happen here or this might that, you're proving my point that a part of learning the game is learning where the glitches are and learning how to avoid them. That shouldn't be part of mastering a game. Like the max it should go is like, okay, I have this movement tech, level design, boom, you're good. Not having to learn where the glitches happen and how to avoid them. I think that's just not good. I hope we can agree on that. That's just not good game design at all.
Well, it's not okay. Well, first of all, that's not game. It's not good. It's not game design. It's a glitch, but it's not good. Now the thing is, you have to think about glitches. That's something I'll fight you on because like The thing is, like I said earlier, the glitches are consistent. Where they happen, why they happen, and when they happen is consistent throughout the whole game. If you get used to it early on, again, I know you're very against getting used to glitches, but like, again, that's just kind of a thing you had to do with old games. If you had to get used, if you know when it happens, you're like, okay, I guess I just won't do that again, and then it never happens again. It's just like that's just kind of a thing with here. And again, if there are a lot of them, fine, I get it. Again, if it's too much for you, I get it. It's not great. It doesn't hinder my ability to have fun with it, but if it does, I completely understand. It's just I can't get behind the idea that just like suddenly that makes the game unplayably awful. Because like, I'm sorry, 06 and Secret Rings are way more unplayable than this game. I know you're gonna fight me on this, but I think that's true.
Okay, you're okay. So.
Okay, so
we're gonna
here's
move
what I want to
on.
know. What's this mystery
All right,
next
I'm
topic
about
that you
to
added?
get into that. So this all depends on if you guys disagree. If you guys agree, then we're just not going to do it because there would be no point.
All right, well, let's see.
All right.
The question is, it's a yes or no question. So each of you are going to say yes or no. So the question is, should the game get a remake?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, then we're just going to move on. Wow,
We can agree on this. We can agree on this. We're virtually shaking hands. Sonic Heroes should get a remake. I mean, the thing is, it can only get a remake because Renderware is defunct now. They would have to rebuild it in a whole. They would have to like port the Jam framework to a whole new engine in order to get it to work.
Never mind then. Two more segments then. So we're going to do closing statements now and accelerate. Remember, you said you wanted to get the closing statements. So
correct. Yes.
Benji, you go first. You have 2 minutes.
I'm not going to take any notes for this one.
All right. So when it comes down to it, I really think my biggest issue with Heroes is just like there's so many things in the game kind of prohibiting you from like having like fun with it and experimenting with it. And from everyone when I made my Heroes video and all the comments was just, oh, you have to learn how to play the game the right way. You have to learn to play the right way. But that is the majority of what I've seen. And from what I understand from talking to people who played Heroes, that is what they're telling me. You have to learn how to play the right way. You have to learn how to get the certain, like, you have to learn the most efficient route, this, that, and that, and you have to learn how to avoid the glitches. If a game forces you to play one specific way, I don't think that's good game design. I think a game should, like, especially for a Sonic game, but any platformer in general, it should allow you to experiment with the controls and find your own way to play. Heroes, with the very restrictive level design that doesn't really like let you go off the beaten path for like, or in controls that really just like, oh, you have to get to the level, you have to do this attack, this and that. And with the glitches, again, you have to learn or the glitches are, you have to know when to avoid the glitches, and it's very constant. This game, it just feels like it's just time constraints. The game, and when it was made, it was not kind to them. And I think that they were like, oh, we have to make this game quick. We have to, and then I guess that was the reason why they had to make it like very linear and very strict in how you play. If you play any other way, like again you said, there's a wrong way to play. There is no wrong way. There is a wrong way to play, but there's also a correct way to play that is the one way that people are saying you have to play, which I think is bad. I think especially for a Sonic game, you should have multiple ways to play that are equally fun. But I feel like there are like the most efficient way is like the most fun. And
okay. All right. I should tell you once again, I must remind you once again, you're not running against President Guides, you're running against me. And here's the thing, like, they're wrong. All of those comments from those people who grew up with Heroes, they're wrong. I did not grow up with Heroes. I first played Heroes in, like, I think it'll be 3 years ago this December. I played it, I liked it, and I kept playing it. That was the thing that happened 3 years ago. The point is, I cannot get, like, yes, there is a wrong way to play. We are in agreement on this. There is not a right way to play. The game does encourage experimentation just by the very nature of having 3 times as many abilities in one playstyle, just in general, across so many different campaigns. The game does encourage experimentation with the movement tech. It's just weird. It's different. And I understand, like, if the glitches are a deal breaker for you, fair enough. They're not for me, but that's something that's going to vary from person to person. But I can't get behind the idea that the game is all about avoiding glitches. It's a thing that you'll have to do occasionally in order to get through it. It's a thing I have to do occasionally in order to get through it, especially on the PC version, which, like, I really hope that Heroes Fixed Edition is going to come out soon, because, like, that's supposed to be the mod that's, like, makes the PC version of Heroes more like the other versions, and that'd be good. But, like, I just can't get behind the idea that it's all about avoiding glitches. And I think a lot of things about Heroes is good. And also, can we at least end this on a mutual note? We can agree that the art direction and music are kick-ass, right?
Yeah,
we can agree on that.
The music for sure. The music for sure.
I really love the way that Heroes looks and sounds. I think we can agree there. So that's I just wanted to end on a more positive mutual note to show that we're not, like, tearing each other apart over this.
I mean,
we're okay. So that's...
this is so funny. Do you have anything else to say, or is that it?
No, that's basically all.
Okay.
just wanted to say that's very subjective.
So,
I don't agree.
The final segment I was going to do is I'm still going to do it, but I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes, and you're going to have to find something gameplay wise that you all can agree on, that you both can agree on.
Oh,
so,
no. Okay.
This is open
right,
mic.
Okay.
You're going to have to find something. You have 3 minutes to both
Shit.
find something you agree on. So come to some sort of common
thing?
ground.
Just one
Just
thing?
just find something gameplay wise. You got find like a common middle
easy.
ground. Okay.
I already know. We can already agree.
Oh,
Frog
okay,
Forest
just
kicks
go.
ass.
Frog Forest.
No, that's not what
Frog Forest
I mean.
is so good.
No,
That's
no,
such a good
that's
stage.
That's not what I mean. Like,
Well, you said
gameplay-wise.
one thing gameplay wise. You said one thing gameplay
No,
wise.
I'm
We
not
agree that
talking-
Frog Forest is a
no.
good level. There you
Okay,
go.
you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Find some common
I
ground.
don't know if
Like a
it's
mechanic.
Mechanics,
Okay.
sure, whatever.
Okay,
you know,
fine.
something like that.
Okay, can we agree that Fire Dunk is pretty cool?
Fire Dunk is where Knuckles does the spike, right?
Yeah.
I guess because it's very easy to clear enemies.
Yeah,
Sure.
and it's a
very
good ranged
efficient.
attack. Like it would do well in other games.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh
All right, well,
yeah, that's really it.
sure.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Fire Dunk.
I was expecting that segment to go somewhere, but whatever.
I don't know what to tell you. This is just like
That's it, bro.
I think you overestimated our animosity.
I was about to say, I thought this was going to be more divided
we are
than it ended
we're
up
still
being.
friends. All three of us. We are still
Of course.
we are still good old chums.
Bro thought this was gonna be like, this was gonna be Trump versus like Kamala part
Bro,
2.
I did quote Kamala Harris.
No, but no, because I
This
thought
is fun.
I was trying to do something because in the middle of the debate, y'all were like,
Middle of the
I feel like
what?
gameplay was the thing y'all disagreed on the most.
Oh yeah, I still heavily disagree, but I feel like
So at the end, I was like, okay,
like,
let's
we
try
can
to find some
we
common
could
ground
try.
there.
We could always find middle ground.
Oh yeah, no,
of
there are
course.
some
Fire
things
Dunk.
that we agree on here. Like again,
It's
we
very
agree.
easy to pull off.
Yeah.
It's very efficient.
Yeah.
And like, if I want to get out of there quickly, I'm like Fire Dunk.
Yeah, Fire Dunk.
Yeah,
That's
Okay,
probably like
sure.
that's probably the best way of dealing with
Sure.
enemies like as from like a distance if you really don't want to move at all. It's not as fast as like the combo attacks, but it works too. And the thing is like we agree on several things. We agree that the art direction, the music, the Fire Dunk, some of the gameplay ideas, some of the levels
story.
even are good.
Right, which
story
is
is
why
yeah,
most of this
we
was focused
disagree.
on like
Gameplay.
gameplay because I know
Gameplay,
obviously the music is
story,
good, the art
most
like
of the
that's just
levels.
it's a Sonic game. I
It's
know,
a Sonic
right?
game.
Like
Of course, it
it's
looks
going
and
to have
sounds
good
good,
music.
obviously.
Sorry, but like to me, if we're really gonna close it off, if the main thing that you're doing gameplay is not fun, you lost me. You can have all the good music you want, all the good levels you want, but if the thing you're
That's
doing
fair.
controlling is not fun, you lost me.
That's a good idea.
Alright.
Ooh, I have a
Alright.
fun idea. Wait, I have a fun idea. Here's something I came up with on the swing of the minute. What if I try to think of one thing that I absolutely cannot stand about Heroes, and he has to think of one thing that he likes?
That's actually okay. That's solid.
And he
Okay, yeah.
thinks
Go
that's
ahead.
true.
Go.
Or,
Okay.
he has
yeah.
to think of one thing that he really loves gameplay wise about it, and
Really-
I have to think of something that I cannot stand.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Alright.
Actually. Yeah.
All right. What I really love. Okay, when it comes to like something like, oh man, I really like this idea in Heroes. I actually let me think for a second. You do your thing first because I gotta think about mine first.
Okay, so here's my thing. I can think. I
Man.
really, really wish that I wish that the switching on the pinball tables was only the way that it was in Bingo Highway, because it's only useful in Bingo Highway for hitting all the perfect bingos. In Casino Park, it is nothing but an active hindrance. I hate it. Also, Mystic Mansion, that level's stupid.
Mystic Mansion.
Okay,
All right.
yeah. Okay, wait. I have more. Now, here's something that I'd like to criticize. Where the hell is the Chow Garden? Like, I know I was very against, like, comparing this to other Sonic games, but, like, come on, man. The entire gimmick of this one is that the game is separated into character types. They have power cores, which are, like, very explicitly level up little bubbles. You go into a key into the special stages. It's very obviously in the Chow world. There are Chow everywhere. Chow are plot relevant for the first time since Sonic Adventure 1. Why is there no Chow Garden? If there were, like, 2 Chow colonies that we know about in the game, why was there no Chow Garden? I cannot... that was such a bad idea. They should have brought it back. That should be in a remake.
Benji, what is one
well,
thing you like?
my thing I really like, it's something like, okay, I could kind of get down with. See, it's not even like fully, but like the thing I can
just the thing
tolerate
that you like the most.
rail grinding. I don't
Seriously?
have a big issue with rail grind. Like, I think the biggest issue is the switching, which is was also an issue in Adventure 2.
I am shocked. Oh my god, what?
But like, I'm a sucker for visuals, and like I like the animation when they flip,
dude.
Right when they, but no, like I think that it's like not, it's not like the worst thing known to mankind, like some people think. I think the switching is really broken, and I think that the collision is inconsistent. Like sometimes you land on it, like, and you're far away from the rail, and sometimes you're like hitting the rail and you're going through it. But like, it's not the worst thing. I think it's the worst it's in is in Final Fortress, but like besides that, it's not that bad. I can mess with the rail.
All right.
Okay.
Can I be real with you? Can I be honest? Wait, can I say one more thing, please? Please, come on, please.
Yeah,
I have to. Okay, I have to say, I am shocked. Like, that floored me to my core. It's very typical Heroes hater, like, rhetoric to say that, the rail grinding is, like, super duper unplayable. So that genuinely surprised me. I had, like, a whole section on notes about why grinding is so mechanically deep and defending it, and then you were like, yeah, grinding isn't that bad. I'm so surprised.
All right. Okay, Riley, so yeah, that's the debate. So in the comments, comment down below who you agree with the most and who you disagree with the most and why. So yeah, again, thank you to Accelerate for hopping on this episode. Go check out his channel.
I'm happy to be
in
here.
The description, and of course, thank you to Benji.
I'm sorry if I got too loud.
He's just always on the podcast. He knows, whatever.
Yeah.
Riley, when you gonna play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
All right, guys. Well, I'll see you all.
When you gonna play the fucking game?
When are you gonna play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
When are you gonna play